Hi friends, Miss Kristi here and welcome. Thank you for joining me to cook again today. Today's recipe is Southern Biscuits. We are gonna make just a smaller portion of biscuits that you can have maybe as a side to your dinner or a snack in the middle of the day. It's going to be so much fun. So in order to cook today, these are the ingredients that you'll need. 1 cup of flour, half a tablespoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1½ tablespoons of honey, 4 tablespoons of butter, and 1/3 cup of milk. The supplies that you'll need is a medium mixing bowl, 1 cup, 1 tablespoon, half a tablespoon, 1/4 teaspoon, a liquid measuring cup, parchment paper, a baking sheet, a butter knife, a fork, and oven mitts. All right, now that we know our ingredients and the supplies that we need to cook today, the first step that we always do when cooking is wash your hands with soap and warm water. All right, my hands are clean, the germs are gone, so let's start making this recipe. Again, to make Southern Biscuits, we're gonna make a smaller portion. It's probably gonna make about 4 or 5 biscuits, and the very first step after our hands are clean is to preheat our oven to 425 degrees. So I'm gonna do that quick. Okay, while the oven is preheating, let's make the biscuits. So first I'm gonna start by grabbing my medium-sized bowl and my flour. So you can use any type of flour. Gluten-free flour is what I'm using today just because that's what my family uses, but you can use regular flour as long as you have a baking flour, and we're gonna use 1 cup of this. So you'll take your 1 measuring cup and scoop it into the flour. You kind of want to get a big heaping scoop. It kind of looks like this. Now baking is precise, so what I'm going to do with my knife is I'm going to take the back of my knife and I'm just going to stick it back over the bag and just kind of scrape it down. That way you have kind of a full cup and not any less, not any more. You have 1 cup of flour. And just dump that into your bowl. And when I bake or when I cook, I like to put the ingredients that I'm done with off to the side. All right, our next ingredient is going to be the baking powder. So I'm gonna grab my baking powder, and you need a half of tablespoon. I'm gonna grab my half of tablespoon. And I'm just gonna scoop that in. Just like this, and then we dump it into our bowl. Put that off to the side. And then we need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I have my salt here, it's kind of in the bigger jar. Grab your 1/4 of teaspoon and you're gonna carefully pour it in because you don't want to get too much salt. And just dump that in with it. All right, now I'm just gonna take my fork that we have here and I'm just gonna kind of mix this together. If you have a spoon, you could use that too, but we need a fork for another part of this recipe, so I'm just using less dishes. So you're gonna mix this all together. And when you use baking powder, you really wanna try to mix it in because if you get chunks of baking powder in your finished biscuit, it doesn't taste so great. So just kind of make sure that it's mixed together as best as you can. All right, so our 3 ingredients are in the bowl, and now we're gonna add the honey, and we need 1½ tablespoons of honey. So first I'm gonna grab my tablespoon, and my honey is in a little jar like this, and you're just gonna squeeze it into the tablespoon, and then dump it into the bowl. And this is gonna give it a little sweetness, but not something that you'll completely recognize in your biscuit, but it just really helps with the flavor. So we have 1 tablespoon, And I'm gonna grab my half a tablespoon again, and we'll do the other half. Squeeze it in, and dump it into our bowl. Okay. And now we need 4 tablespoons of butter before I mix this all together. So my butter is in a container like this. Now you might have a stick of butter, and if you do that, it's a little bit easier. You'll see on your stick that it's separated into tablespoons, and you need 4 tablespoons. So you would cut it right at that 4th line. Because I have butter in a container like this, what I'm basically gonna do is also super easy, is I'm going to take my tablespoon again and just kind of scoop out 4 of these, because we need 4. Okay, so I have 4 tablespoons of butter in our bowl. And what we're gonna do with the fork is you wanna make your butter into kind of little tiny crumbly pieces. So you're just gonna break it up as best as you can. And we're also mixing in the honey at that time. And you want your butter to end up in kind of little tiny balls throughout your flour mixture here. And it's okay to get your hands a little bit dirty. Cooking can be messy, and that's okay. Just kind of want to mix this all together. And I'm just using the back of my fork to kind of mash the butter. Since I used butter from a little tub, it was a little bit easier because it's softer. If you have a stick of butter, it just might take a little bit longer to mash them up. But when you're done, they should kind of be little tiny chunks of butter like that. All right. So our next ingredient is going to be the milk. And what you want to do with that is when you have your bowl here, you kind of want to make a little hole in the middle. Nothing super fancy or hard, just kind of a little space where we're gonna pour that milk in order to then mix it all together. So let me wipe my fingers here. And we need 1/3 cup milk. Whenever I measure, you wanna make sure you put your, let me move this aside for a second, put your measuring cup on a flat surface that you can get an exact amount. So again, I'm using an almond milk or an oat milk. You can use regular milk, just some type of milk. We need 1/3 cup. Right. Got my bowl back here, and you're just gonna pour this in the little middle center hole that we created. Okay. And then take your fork again, and you're going to mix this all together. And it's gonna start to form some dough. And again, this is a smaller recipe, so it's gonna make maybe 4 biscuits, just enough for if you wanted to have like a snack or share a snack or have a biscuit for someone at dinner. It's not a full recipe, so which is nice because you don't always want a ton of biscuits to have to find people to eat. All right, so once it kind of looks like this, it's a bit sticky, which is okay. And it does resemble some dough. So this kind of looks the way we want it to look. All right, next step is gonna be to grab our parchment paper. So that's gonna make your life a little bit easier. It's gonna help so it doesn't stick to your pan. So I'm gonna set this to the side and grab my baking sheet and my parchment paper. So you're gonna rip a sheet of paper off, just like this. Grab your baking sheet and set the parchment paper right on top. Now here's where you get to make some decisions. How big do I want my biscuits? I'm going to make my biscuits kind of like this big. You can make one giant biscuit if you really wanted, or you can make them really any size you want. So you have this amount of dough to work with, and you get to make some decisions from here. So you're gonna use your hands and really just kind of grab some dough and form them into a circle shape. And then we're gonna pop them in the oven. All right, so I ended up making 4 biscuits with our recipe. Now, the one thing that is important when you make multiple on your cookie sheet, like I have or your baking sheet, you wanna make sure that they're the same thickness. That way they cook evenly. So I have some here and I'm just kind of patting them down a little bit to make sure that they're all somewhat similar. If not, some would get really undercooked and some would get overcooked. And it's okay if they look kind of lumpy, that's good. They don't have to be perfect, they're biscuits. And it kind of just makes it fun to play with. So I have my biscuits. Again, this made 4 for this recipe. We're now gonna pop them in the oven. As soon as your oven is preheated to that 425 degrees, you're gonna put them in there and set a timer for 12 minutes. And then when they're done, we'll take them out and see how they look. And before they go in the oven, we wanna make sure we put our oven mitts on so that we don't burn ourselves. All right, friends, the timer just went off, so let's put on our oven mitts and take our Southern Biscuits out of the oven. All right, this is exciting. So I have 2 pot holders here on the counter. You wanna make sure never to set a hot pan or hot baking sheet on the counter because you'll burn it. So make sure you have something to protect the counter, like a pot holder or maybe another oven mitt. And I've got a little plate here, so I'm just going to take our biscuits once they've cooled off of the baking sheet and onto our plate. And they look really good. So they have this nice golden color, they're flaky, and you can have this again as an afternoon snack. Maybe put some honey or some butter on it, or you can have it alongside your dinner. This made a nice 4 biscuits, so it's a nice size. If you wanted more biscuits, you could double the recipe, but I wanted to cook something with you today that you could make just for yourself as well. So thank you for cooking these Southern Biscuits with me. If you would like to cook along next week, first thing, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can be a part of all of our shows and cook along with me. But next week we're gonna make cheese quesadillas. So if you would like to make the quesadillas, these are the ingredients that you will need for next week. 2 tortillas, 1/4 cup of shredded cheese, and cooking spray. All right, friends, I do hope you join me next week to make those cheese quesadillas, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends.